I'm Alana. I use they and she pronouns,
And I'm Jessie. I use she and her pronouns. And
and we're
we're
making
making
mentions.
mention. Making mention is an organization providing radical Jewish education.
And this is the artist series where we showcase queer, Jewish, anti-Zionist artists. And today we're talking to Nick, who also uses Tahini as their artist name. So introduce yourself. What are your pronouns? Where do you call home? What's your astrological sign if you're into that? Because we are. And then tell us what kind of art you make.
My name is Nick. Again, I use they and them pronouns. I'm currently living in Philadelphia for the summer, but most of the time I live in upstate New York, truly upstate New York, up by the Indian border
Oh,
in the very rural area and area. I make all kinds of stuff. Primarily, people know me as a tattoo artist, and I also make plushies. I do ceramics. I do printmaking. I do painting. Yeah, basically you name it, I'll do it or I've done it. Yeah, I mostly tattoo, eat. Possibly those are the two biggest things that I do, and sewing, making some clothes too.
I love it. You got a hand in every pot. That's so awesome.
It's a lot.
Um, exactly. So you actually have to do it all. It's not an option.
So I'm going to just jump us in here, starting us off with this enormous question, but take whichever part of it you want. What was your relationship to Judaism growing up, and how does it show up in your life now?
So I was raised Reformed. My mom is Jewish and my dad is not, but I was raised Jewish, going to synagogue pretty often. I went to Hebrew school growing up. But in the classic Reformed American tradition, I learned how to read and pronounce Hebrew, but not really anything of what it means. But culturally, I learned a lot about Judaism and practiced it, my family and stuff. As I've grown older, I feel grateful because I've always had a pretty positive relationship with it. I never had any particular trauma with Judaism. And so I strengthened my adult connection with it in a very different way than I practiced it as a child. But I definitely still consider myself to be religious, spiritual, and Jewish and practicing or whatever that means. It's a practice. It changes all the time. And in my art, everywhere. It's everywhere. It's me.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question, which I feel like we should have been asking the whole series, but did you go to camp, like Reformed Jewish camp or anything?
I did not go to Jewish camp, but I did go to summer camp for 5 days.
Okay. Just curious. I'm melting it.
Yeah, no, it's totally a thing. Everybody who went to camp with me was Jewish, pretty much.
That's really, I was at a camp for queer kids last night talking to that, queer futures, and they had a little drop. It was very sweet. I am obsessed with queer youth, but there was something so specific being at a camp and being like, this is really where the magic happens. This is where it all starts. And I was with Aviva, actually, who we talked to earlier in the series, and we were talking about how Jewish camp really plants a lot of seeds. So I love that. You touched on this, of course, and saying that you're Jewish, so your Jewishness, your Judaism impacts your art because it's who you are. But I'm curious if you can just expand on how all of your identities show up in your art and impact your art.
Yeah, definitely. So before I started tattooing, the way I made art was different, just to be completely honest. And it was all present in that art too. Like it's present now too, but my process with creating art is different. It's a little bit less organic. But that being said, I make rainbow art. I use a lot of Hebrew in my art. I definitely use anti-state themes in my art all the time. I create scenes and paintings with that kind of content. And in tattooing, that is what people come to me for. I would say the intersection of all of those things often. Very few people who I tattoo are not looking for something in either all three of those kind of categories or two or one. So few people. So almost everything that I draw for tattooing has one or all three of those themes. Like I do circle olives, I do rainbow Hebrew tattoos, I make Judaica. Recently, I've been doing lots of mezuzahs on people.
I love those. Those are so good.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
So I'll take accountability. I was stalking your Instagram page and I was really excited to see this cool pay what you can, low cost tattoos for queer dudes thing that you've been doing. And it seems like you do it pretty regularly. And I was just curious, like the genesis of it. Cool. Turn off the Jewish professional. The start of it. The start of it and kind of your philosophy around it or how it came into being.
Yeah, so something that I've always wanted since I started tattooing to be able to do, because I've always, as soon as I started getting into the idea of being a tattooer, I started drawing Jewish stuff. So from the very beginning, it's been a big part of how I've become a tattooer. So within that, I really feel a lot of gratitude. And also, I get emotional about this. Sorry. It's pretty personal to me. But Jewish people should be able to express who they are. Sorry. I'm getting
Oh,
very
that's
emotional.
okay. It's beautiful that it's so meaningful to you. Appreciate you sharing that with us and being here with us.
Sorry. But yeah, I feel like Jewish people, especially queer Jewish people, should be able to express who we are. And a lot of people I know struggle, including myself. Obviously, at times a lot more than others. So yeah, it's expensive. There aren't a lot of people who do Judaica tattoos in general. So I want it to be something that could come.
I want to insert here a little bit about the radical act of Jewish tattooing and how a lot of pushback I've heard sometimes about tattooing and as a Jew or being tattooed as a Jew is you are B'Tselem Elohim, you're created in God's image, but you're borrowing your body from God and he really doesn't belong to you, which some people find very reassuring that you're part of this cycle. And I'm not here to knock anybody's Jewish beliefs ever, but I think the work that you're doing as a Jewish tattoo artist and a Jewish queer tattoo artist is really healing and affirming people in a way that other forms of Jewish ritual practice cannot. And for people who have experienced violence against their physical body or just their emotional state or their existence in the world, the practice of embodying Jewish ritual and Jewish tradition is so holy. So I just want to thank you for the work and the fact that it is so emotional is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I'm so grateful for the work you're doing.
I feel grateful to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think that's really special. I think that Jesse and I obviously are both queer Jews who are tattooed. And I feel like I've gotten a lot of Jewish words and phrases tattooed in the last few years, especially as I've been able to identify for myself which ones resonate and what feels really important. And there is something very specific. I think also as a queer person, tattooing in the queer community is a very specific way of reclaiming our bodies and expressing our true self and feeling comfortable in our skin. And I think to be able, like for me, to be able to combine these two things that mean so much to me as parts of my identity is, yeah, it's really important to me and it's really powerful. And I also think it's powerful to choose to label yourself in that way so permanently and so explicitly as a Jewish person, because historically Jews have been forced into labeling themselves outwardly as Jews. So I think that there is a lot of reclamation that lies in that, for me at least. I love all the tattoos that you do. I'm very excited to, once I'm done with my moving fees, come and get tattooed by you because it's been on my radar.
That would be lovely. Yeah, I feel there's something since I started doing them as something about Jewish tattoos that feel really similar to me to a mezuzah, and that you see them on another person and you can just know that they're Jewish, and it's a really nice thing.
Yeah. I think that there's an element of safety and community that comes with that. And I love the idea of putting blessings on our body, specifically with the idea of a mezuzah tattoo being very literally blessing the body that you're in, I think is really cool and beautiful and powerful. I want to pivot a little bit from tattooing, though I'm sure we'll come back to it, and ask a bit about your work and collaboration with Pushcart Judaica and your plushies, and just what has inspired you to collaborate with Pushcart, and how does exploring all of these different art forms help you work with your artistic vision?
Yeah, so I started making those last fall, just because I live in the woods and there's so much time, and people are starting to be interested in them. I was starting to sell them online, and I got connected to Pushcart through some folks who I tattooed in the Hudson Valley, and
Hudson Valley?
yeah, it's through our Queer Farm project. It's not around more, but there's a
Oh,
group of
I know what
people.
you're talking about. What is it called?
Yeah, think of Goal is what it was
Yes,
called.
yes.
So I tattooed a bunch of people who were involved around that project, and the person who runs Pushcart was also part of that. And so I connected to them by tattooing them, and they were telling me about this thing that they're doing where they're traveling around and selling Jewish people's art around the country. And I was like, awesome, because I've done some tabling of my own stuff before, and I tour as a tattooer too. So I separately have done these two things that they're doing in a slightly different way. And they're both such a grind that it's just really lovely to have somebody else sell my art. Obviously, also, I am so behind the mission, and I'm so stoked that they're experiencing success. I've been watching the posts and stuff and the different markets, and they seem like they're going really great. And it's so cool to me. I was bummed because I was going to go and do the one in Philly, but I just was on a trip out west. So I haven't been to any of them yet.
Well,
But
hopefully there'll be one in New York in the future.
it'd be,
Chatted about that with them once or twice. So TBD.
I saw some of your plushies and looked to me somewhat like Golem inspired in some ways, like the Golem of Prague.
Yeah.
And I just was like, am I projecting? Or
it's literally just in everything that I do because I'm so Jewish that I make things like not even always on purpose, because I totally looked at the monster ones, the little ones without ears and stuff. I'm like, this is a golem. And I embroider it sometimes on the little foreheads. I have some that have Aleph Mem Taf embroidered on them. Yeah, it's totally a thing. I love the golem. It's a very queer, it comes up a lot in my art. It's a very queer feeling story to me. This idea of forming yourself and protection of your community, all of those things that story kind of entails, and the magical aspect of it. But particularly like the protection element is nice with the doll. I really, with those in particular, that's part of why they look like that. It's because, yeah, it's on purpose. I like the idea of holding the golem, feeling protected.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. And I was just talking to someone today about diaspora Judaism and finding protection and comfort and security and safety outside of Israel and disconnected from Zionism. But that leads me to a bigger question, and maybe it's connected to the art that we're talking about now, or maybe it's more connected to your tattooing art or painting. What do you think of the idea of art as resistance? And do you make art as a form of resistance?
I think definitely related to what we were talking about before, especially for queerness. Tattooing is, to me, inherently that, because of the fact that it visibilizes your queerness and your Jewishness if you choose to get Judaica. Like, being a visible person of difference is resistance. Obviously, there's also overt that I put in some of my art, but I feel more strongly about the act of personal resistance that comes from tattooing, I think. The fine art that I create, it doesn't necessarily always feel like resistance. Sometimes the imagery is of those kinds of concepts, but I don't think it really embodies that inherent. And the dolls and stuff are more of a comfort. But tattooing is definitely, I think, an act of radical resistance, especially in the way that I do it. That I do it like I'm self-taught, and the style that I do it is not traditional. So the way I do it is resistance, and the people who are getting it are doing resistance by getting it.
Also, you were saying that the plushies are not resistance because they're more comfort, but I also think that comfort and like being comforted can hear the resistance. Yeah, it's all in there.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
When we were talking about the golem, I actually have this little zine right next to me, so I thought that was funny. It's this zine by Ezra Rose, all about golems, which is really cute. So just plugging another artist talking about golems. This is definitely a pivot. I don't feel like we've really talked about this very much yet, but it feels like a really big part of your online presence and something you mentioned at the beginning that I personally am very interested in and would like to hear so much more about, maybe more than we have time for right now, but hopefully when I'm getting a tattoo from you, we can talk about this. I'm curious how your life has changed since living off the grid certain times throughout the year or majority of the time. I have some follow-up questions, but I'll start there.
That is a crazy question, sir. Living off the grid the way that I do when I'm there is nothing that most people have ever imagined. Like, we don't have running water. When I got there, there was a shed, a finished shed on the property, but it's not super insulated. It's pretty rough. We had to build an outdoor shower and composting toilet and stuff. And I cook outside on a gas stove or in the ground. So it's pretty different than city life. And I love it. It's awesome in the fall, spring, and summer. In the winter, it's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Because up there, most of the winter, you're buried under 2 to 3 feet of snow. And it gets down into the negative temperatures pretty often. So it's really cold and it's hard to get anywhere. So it's pretty lonely. But there's also a certain type of peace and solitude that comes from it. And I learn a lot about myself. I spend a lot of time being introspective. That's both good and bad.
Yeah, it's giving Thoreau.
Yeah.
But that's truly so incomprehensible. When you first said that you live up near the Canadian border, I was immediately like, winter sounds absolutely horrible. I don't know that I could. It's a nightmare. But this is actually not the follow-up question I had, but I am curious about it. Do you feel like living off the grid influences the kind of art that you make in any way?
Inherently, especially because I do have such a diverse background, the art that I am forced to make has to be able to work on solar if it's using electric equipment or with completely manual operations. I just got a pottery wheel, but I can only use it when the sun. So stuff like that. Yes, definitely. And we have rainwater collection. I don't have a well, so our water supply at times can be limited. So that also occasionally will limit the kind of art that I will make. But also, I am more interested in making art with the materials because there's lots available to me. So I've done some exploration of that kind of stuff as well. So there's a lot there, definitely, that has affected it. And the kind of stuff that I want to draw, when I'm more capable of creating art when I'm in that setting, like the city. Or the city, I often stumble to make art in the city, and out there, I have no but time. So it's all I want to do.
Yeah, that sounds simultaneously super frustrating and also super rewarding and beautiful. I think it's definitely easy as someone who lives in the city year round to romanticize that. But I feel like I go upstate, not upstate for people who live in New York City, which is just an hour outside the city. Exactly. Hudson Valley, where Jesse and I grew up. I go up to the Hudson Valley most weekends and like, I love to be outside and camp, and I do feel more creative and in touch with my creativity when I have the chance to do that. I don't know, it could be very crushing to creativity sometimes to be in a city constantly. I also feel like there's a lot of really cool ways to connect to Judaism and nature. I think mainly of using natural bodies of water as mikvahs, which I just think is like really awesome. And just in general, Jewish spiritual practice is so connected to nature and the cycles of the seasons and the moon cycles. So lots happening there. My actual follow-up question was, tell us a little bit about your farming sustenance project and if there are any Jewish values that guide it.
Pretty new, 1 year old, me and my one friend, but I envisioned that. I definitely envisioned that. And I would like to be farming in a way that is in congruency with the cycles of the Jewish year, if it's possible, because our seasons are weird there. But otherwise, yes, we have probably like currently a 1/4 acre of land that's garden in one area, and then another maybe 1/4 acre, so half total right now, all set up as a garden. Growing trees. I just planted 6 trees this year. The vision is to be completely off grid and fully self-sustaining. So eventually I want to grow grain. I want to grow all the vegetables. I want to grow nuts. Oh, and we're also vegan, which it's for me part of my personal Jewish practice. So eventually I'll grow all my food and have it all there. There's enough season that we can grow everything. We just have to do it stats. We got to get it down. This year I was not quite there. But there's lots of stuff growing. We've got all kinds of stuff. And if it all works, even just the stuff that I planted before I came to Philly, we probably have enough food for part of the fall this year. So it doesn't really take a lot to do something.
That's amazing for it to be only a year in the making and already being able to sustain yourself through at least part of some seasons, I think is so cool.
I'm excited about it. It's land that I own, so it's going to be there and grow and grow.
It's incredible.
That is so cool. Said about veganism and also the connection to the agricultural parts of Judaism. Because like 40% of the Torah is like plant this way, don't plant this way, don't plant this way. Like, is there a text connection or is there a kashrut connection to your veganism or to your farming or anything where it's like completely you are practicing and ritualizing your way of life in Judaism?
I wish that the answer to that question was better than what it is, but it's more different parts of my spiritual practices in Judaism. And in particular, it's something about respecting all of the creatures of the earth and all of them having a purpose. Obviously, parts of Judaism believe that purpose is for humans, but I don't. That's my very simple answer.
That's a great answer. That is not a simple answer though. Thank you. And okay, again, going in a different direction, but thinking back to our conversation about art and art as resistance and art being transformative and all of these incredible qualities of inhibit. How do you think art can start a dialogue between different communities or people with different values?
I feel like that's probably the easiest question to answer. When people see art, they have thoughts, right? So the easiest and most natural thing for humans thought, say it out loud. And then if there's another person there and they hear someone say something, they're going to want to say something back. And that's what art does. Especially with tattoos, people feel the urge when to make about it, which I've experienced all the time. And especially if it's something controversial, like queer art, something about Jewishness, anti-Zionist, anti-state, whatever. If someone sees that and they disagree, they're probably going to say something. So when you participate in that art by receiving it or showing it, whatever it is, it's tattoos or paintings or sculpture, whatever, you're pre-engaging. You are inherently opening yourself up to people wanting to engage with you. And with tattoos, it's like, you can't turn it off. So sometimes it's a lot, but that's commitment that I think is really serious and strong. It's part of what makes it radical.
I actually love the idea of the permanency of tattoos and not being able to turn them off so people don't ask about them being serious and important, and like an important element of them. I feel like I haven't thought about it in that way before, and I like that idea and concept.
That specifically feels like a reclamation because of the nature of being like Holocaust survivors and stuff where we'll still have them go away. There's something poetic about doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
Emotional about it. That's part of my thing as a tattooer.
It's like that's both one of the biggest reasons that people are like, at least like Jewish people that I've heard who are not into tattoos be like, you shouldn't get tattoos because we're forced to. And I do think there's such a huge element of reclamation to be like, we didn't have that choice, but now we have the agency to choose to do that. And so we can choose that for ourselves. And that feels powerful.
Now I'm going to bring us to the beginning of our wrap up with a question that is really big. So feel free to take some time to process. If you could leave all of our listeners with just one message, what would it be?
Big question. Such a hard question to answer.
We like to spring that on at the end.
Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Period.
It applies to being gay and also being Jewish. So yeah,
That's perfect. That sums it up, honestly.
be yourself fearlessly.
Ooh, that might be the title right there. That's beautiful. Yeah, I really do feel like that sums it all up. Be yourself fearlessly and get awesome tattoos or buy awesome artwork that helps embody your truest self. Thank you so much for being with us, for working through tech stuff and timing stuff. It's been such a pleasure to hear about all of the incredible things you do. I feel like we could have had hour-long conversations about each of the things that you do, which is just incredible. You do amazing work in so many different ways. We'd love for you to highlight any work that you want to highlight. So anything that you want people who are listening to know. Where can they find you? How can they pay for artwork by you?
So I'm mostly through Instagram right now. I do have an Etsy, but it's not active right now. If you want art from me, you can go to my Instagram. If you want to get a tattoo from me, there's a link in my bio. You can click on that. Anytime you can get art from me, other than on Instagram, it'll be through that link in my bio. But otherwise, I do customs of all kinds. If you have a crazy project, I'll consider it. I really want to do buzz this year. So if anybody's getting married, no one's gay, Katuba, I'll do it. So yeah.
Hey, good to know. Oh, that's very cool. Jotting that down for if I ever get married. Your Instagram is tahini.jpg for anyone who is listening, but we're also going to include the link in the description of the episode. So click the link, go see all the awesome work that they do and get a good tattoo. And we'll be back next week with Naomi Weintraub, who uses they, them pronouns, who is non-binary Jewish white person who lives in Baltimore and makes awesome art. So we will see everyone, talk to everyone in a week for our next installment of the Artist Series. But thank you so much for being here with us today, Nick. It's been so wonderful to talk to you, and we can't wait to be in community moving forward.
Yeah, it was lovely to meet you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.